So I want to talk a little bit about enlightenment. And I want to talk about a little bit about enlightenment as a psychologist. And I'm declaring there's a new disorder, a new psychological disorder. It has not been identified yet officially, but there's no doubt in my mind that it exists. And this new psychological disorder is called Enlightenment Anxiety. Some of you may already be experiencing it, and so I'm here to help you by diagnosing your illness. Enlightenment anxiety. What's enlightenment anxiety? Well, if you're a seeker, if you got the bug, right? You found out about this and you realized the possibility, and who wouldn't want that, right? I mean, what does it have to offer? Everything, right? Peace, contentment, clarity, well-being. It's a no-brainer, to want to be enlightened, right? And so then you become a seeker, right? And then if you become a seeker, what are you seeking? You're seeking enlightenment. Well, what is that? Well, enlightenment is when you wake up. Well, what is that? Well, waking up means that you come to see directly for yourself that who you took yourself to be wasn't accurate, and who you took yourself to be was a mistake. And not only was it a mistake, but through these understandings and practices, it becomes more and more evident that this mistake has consequences, that it has cost you dearly in terms of your well-being, your happiness, your satisfaction, et cetera, et cetera. So then the seeking process begins, and the question then continues to be presented to you by your own mind and by maybe other people in conversations that you have with them about, am I enlightened yet? So this waiting to be enlightened process begins, and this concern about enlightenment begins. How will I know? Can my teacher tell me? Will I depend on my teacher to tell me I'm enlightened? Will I just get it myself? Like that. And so this process begins, and there's this concern, and and when you listen to some of the Zen teachings about waking up in terms of kenso, the idea that through the practice of meditation, this experience becomes available called kenso, which is considered waking up. It's an actual experience called waking up. So when you hear all that, a typical Zen student or a Zen monk aspires to have this experience of kenso. And then you hear the teachers talk about their wake-up experiences. So the whole thing, and I'm talking now from a psychological perspective, the whole thing is a whole new kind of neurosis, enlightenment neurosis. So I want to offer a solution to that for anybody who's interested, because it's really easy to resolve, right? The solution to enlightenment anxiety, the solution to the question of whether you're enlightened or not, can be resolved by the following. Who is it that is concerned about being enlightened? Like, look and see. Who is it that is the awareness that you are concerned about being enlightened? Yeah. Who's concerned about being enlightened? Not only is who concerned about being enlightened, but this who that's concerned about being enlightened, does this who is concerned about being enlightened think that what's going to happen is that this who will get enlightened? It must be the case, because that's the who's concerned, right? The one who's concerned about being enlightened is the one who must believe that that one can be enlightened, right? Well, that might be useful in terms of some of these conversations as far as concessions, what Rupert calls concessions. We'll talk about it in this way so you, who started this as a person, can comprehend what we're talking about, and then later on we'll switch things up a little bit and get more honest about the whole thing. But the way I look at it is, that can put you through a lot of unnecessary suffering, in terms of being anxious and concerned, and then doubts come up, and, for some people, they actually get to the point where they walk away and they say, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. That might be a reaction to being afraid that they'll never be enlightened, right? But here's the deal. This really came to me when I was listening to the Swami from the New York Advaita Vedanta Society. And he said, take the fast track. Take the fast track. Don't be a person trying to be enlightened. Don't be a person trying to wake up. Take the fast track. What's that mean? What does he mean by that? The fast track is, if it's true that you already are the awareness, why do anything other than simply be that? Right? Why do anything other than simply be that? So flip the script. Instead of being a person trying to wake up, be awake trying to get rid of the person who thinks they have to wake up. That's a much easier job to accomplish, right? So that's why Ramesh Balsekar wrote a book called Who Cares, right? Because there's no doubt that who you and I really are doesn't care about enlightenment. How could who you and I really are, care about enlightenment? Because who you and I really are is already who we are. We're already awake. That's already the case. It's not going to happen. Nothing's going to change. It's already the case. Yeah, so you have a much better time at this. Take that position, even if it's not something that you consider yourself experiencing. Take it anyway. Declare you're enlightened. A declaration is something that can be said without evidence, right? A declaration is something that can be said without evidence. Declare you're enlightened. And then have it be your goal to live consistent with what you said. So I hope that's the one single thing I want to get across in this talk today is don't be neurotic about being awake. Don't be stupid about being awake. Don't cause a whole new level of suffering about being awake. That's ridiculous. This is about ending suffering, and the way to end suffering is very simple. All you have to do is relax and realize there's nothing to be afraid of. Stop being so afraid of fear. Stop being so... Most people never deal with their fear because they're too afraid of being afraid. If you face your fear, if you let yourself feel the fear, right, in the body, right, and let whatever fearful thoughts are there, let all that play, you realize it doesn't kill you. It's not even all that bad to be afraid. And if you do allow yourself to experience fear and you realize that it's not a big deal, it's okay to be afraid, then it won't stop you anymore from doing all the things you're afraid of. And it won't be in the way when death comes. You'll be able to be there for your death. That's very important, to be there for your death, right? To be there for the death of the body, to be there for the end of the personality. And if you do the work, and if you do the practice, and if you realize the truth, that will be the way your death is. It'll be an experience, be something that you watch, something that you witness. Pretty far-fetched, right, for the personality, right? Well, reality is far-fetched for the personality. That's good news, right? Because that means the hell realm isn't the truth. All right, enough said. Questions?
Early on, I was thinking, like you said, it's the enlightenment is always there. It always was there. So it's more of a subtraction thing. The personality is a veil and a mask, and when you meditate, you let that drop. So.
If you're meditating correctly.
If you're meditating
you're
correctly.
You're letting go, yeah. Yeah, see, and the other thing is this, it's that in the beginning of the process, especially after what we call awakening, which simply means that you're aware that you're aware. That's all. That's what awakening is. And you're aware that you're aware. You're aware that you are awareness. That's awakening. Yeah, and then after that, there's work to be done in terms of paying attention now, because now you're awake. Now you're awake, you can pay attention to programming that's running, right? And start to take your seat. Start to be aware of that program that's running is no longer something that you have to identify yourself with, and that's the process of negation. Okay. However, one thing that I would recommend, again, to make this easier, right, is to realize that that process of negation can actually occur in a way in which, as you notice what's not real and what doesn't work, as you notice the personality playing, right, you don't have to negate anything. We talk about it that way the same way as we talk about a lot of things conceptually, right? But in actuality, you don't have to negate anything, because if you're practicing being who you are, do you have to negate anything? Does the awareness negate things? No. So that's still the personality trying to get to a, yeah. So all you have to do is pay attention and see things as they are. The seeing of things as they are, that's it. It's over. When you see a mirage as a mirage, you don't have to go to school about it. You saw it. You know it's not real, right? That's the power of awareness, right? So you could call it negation, but in reality, all it is paying attention and witnessing things as they are. When you see the truth, right, the lies don't have any power anymore. When you see the way things really are, right, then you realize you don't have to keep thinking about the way it is. You're seeing it. Thinking about it takes you into a process in which you come to some kind of interpretation based on your conditioning, it's not gonna work. And it's not necessary, because if you're aware, you're there for it. You're aware of it. We don't trust awareness because we're used to thinking, right? We think we have to do something first, then we'll know what's going on. We have to think first, then we'll know what's going on. No. When you wake up, you realize awareness is present. Awareness is actually here, seeing, aware of things that are happening as they are. Pre-interpretation. And that doesn't mean the interpretation doesn't happen. It doesn't even mean the interpretation doesn't play a role, right? There are a lot of things we should think about, right? There are a lot of things we should think about. Thinking is a process that we can use if we have the mind learn who the boss is, right? That's why training the mind is so critical here, right? Because until the mind's trained, it's going to compete with you to determine what you're going to do. And in the past, it has had the final say. It's the weather outside today is rainy, and, the mind will call it dismal. It's just rainy. I don't know what that dismal. But that's the weather today, right? So that alone will determine whether somebody could come to class. That's true. That alone. People wake up, oh, it's raining, I don't have to go. That's how the mind works, right? Did you ever notice you get a little sniffle and you feel a little tired, you're not up to, and the mind says, oh, you could stay home. You see how it works? It's like that, right? Yeah, and when you wake up, you stop having that run the show. When you wake up, you start seeing the challenges that are available in life as interesting opportunities to play a game. Interesting opportunities to play a game, What would it be like to deal with your physical body and your physical well-being like an interesting opportunity to play a game, instead of like having to deal with all of what it would take to get in shape? Instead of an interesting opportunity to play a game. If it's possible for my body to be in good health and all the information available is available about how to do that, more than ever before. You can have an Apple Watch now and have all kinds of metrics about your oxygen intake level, your heart rate, all the stuff that you can measure today. You'd have to go into some kind of research hospital in the past to get all that feedback. Now you can wear it on your wrist, right? So that game would be an interesting game. I could get all the information about what would need to happen to my body to have optimal health, and then play the game. That's a whole different thing than the way the mind typically relates to well-being. It's like, oh man, you have to get up earlier. You have to do things you don't feel like doing.
You mentioned about competing. I feel like when I meditate, there's a constant competition going on between my thoughts and breathing, the body, awareness. And often it seems that the thoughts win, that I'm spending most of the time in thought and less of the time in focusing on the breath and the body. So because of that, I feel like I'm losing this game. This is a challenge. This is a game. I'm losing the game because most of my time is spent in thought. Less of the time is spent in awareness or breathing or the body. You mentioned before about declaring that you're enlightened. Just declare you're enlightened. Well, for me personally, I feel like that would be a false declaration because a lot of my time is spent in thought and less time in the breath. How does one try to change that?
I love the question. I love this question. I love Bob because Bob is Bob. Here's the answer to your question, right? Now watch. One simple answer wipes the whole thing out, right? Right? Who are you being when that's the case?
The person.
Stop being the person. Then what?
Then what's left seems to be nothing
For who?
for the person.
Yeah, stop being the person. See, no matter what you could say to me that's a consideration or a description of your problem, that's the person's problem. As long as you're the person, you're going to have that problem or more problems like that, right? Yeah.
Well, do you ever have times when you look at your meditation practice as a challenge that you're competing?
No. See, if you're going to declare you're awake, right, follow up. Follow up with your declaration. Follow up with your because if you're going to declare you're awake, you're saying, I am the awareness that's there when I move my attention away from the thought process. I am that awareness. That's my declaration. That's my commitment, right? Now the practice is, right? The practice is not buying into the bullshit, which happens in thinking. Anything you could tell me that's a concern or a consideration, all right, about this whole thing, it's a nice story about the competition, nice story, right? But anything you could tell me about that is coming from the person's way of looking at it. I find that when I meditate, now listen, and I guarantee you out there in YouTube land, you got this shit going on. I find that when I meditate, it's like competition between the mind and the awareness, right? Well, you see, once you find that, you're in the world of that problem now. It's the you who found that that's the problem. All you got to do is get that that's not real. You don't even have to change it or stop being it, just get that it's not real. You will continue to be it, but when you're being it and you know it's not real, it's a whole different story. When you're being it and you know it's not real, it's like an actor in a good movie, right? Instead of thinking you're in the movie. You're in the movie getting shot at or in the horrible situations that occur in the movies, which everybody loves to go see, right? Did you ever realize the most popular, now watch, the most popular subject for humanity is the thing humanity is most afraid of. The most popular subject for humanity is the thing humanity is most afraid of. What is that? Death. Go look at the movie previews tonight. I guarantee you, death is the subject.
Especially in October.
Yeah, especially in October. We could celebrate October death, right? Death is the subject in movies, right? How many people can we show in the movie getting killed at one time? How terrible can we show how they get killed, right? And now the movies have gotten to the stream, the way that people, the Mortal Kombat that they show in the movies is beyond possibility. Nobody could do that shit, right? But we love it anyway because people are getting killed left and right, all over the place, blood, right? We pay for this. We pay to go see this, right? So isn't it interesting that the thing we're most afraid of is the thing we're most attracted to? You know, Freud used to say there was a thing called the death wish, right? Almost like I wish I would die. I want to die, right? So I can get out of this mess I'm in, right? That's pretty crazy stuff, but, you know, Freud said that that's there in the psyche, right? So buyer beware, See, I know that Bob knows what we're talking about here, right? But even though he knows what we're talking about, even though a lot of you know what we're talking about here, right, that's not going to change who's in charge moment to moment in your everyday life. That's an interesting concept, right? But you have to take that concept and put it into action. You have to take that concept and start to practice. If you're going to declare that you're awake, practice being awake. If you declare you're awake and then you're going to continue to be asleep and, and not available for your own life, what are you doing? Just setting up another level of suffering for yourself? That's crazy. Don't dare declare anything you're not willing to follow up on, right?
Even the Dalai Lama thinks he has thoughts.
That's right. And one of the things the Dalai Lama says, right, to try and get people to understand the truth is, I am not extraordinary. He says it, doesn't he? I am just a simple monk, right? I'm just another human being like you are, right? Jesus Christ said the same thing. I am not different than you. What I have been practicing and what's available to me is available to everybody. And my mission, other than to try and get everybody to be peaceful and to care about one another, my mission is to get that message out there. I'm not special. If you like what you see here, you are the same as I am. But that's not going to happen unless you're willing to start paying attention to what's running, right? That the thoughts that are running and the emotions that are running and the programming that's running from your conditioning that keeps you outside of that. That's all that's happening. It's just keeping you outside of that. Because what's possible is available all the time, day and night, 7 days a week. Immediately available. And you don't have to do anything to have the experience. You're having it right now, right? But if your attention is being taken by the thought process and concerns and worries and fears and aches in the body and all the rest of it that people pay all their attention to, if that's the life you're living, you're paying attention to all that stuff, you're ignoring the possibility. You're ignoring freedom. You're ignoring happiness and peace. You're ignoring who you really are. And it's so goddamn easy to stop doing that, you just can't get it.
One other issue.
Go.
I suppose the sad part of it for me personally is that when I'm involved in meditation, when I'm in this thought versus awareness game, it seems like the thoughts are much more interesting than the breath.
They are.
And I know there's all these great things in awareness. I buy that. But as I'm doing it, as I'm sitting and breathing, the thoughts just seem much more fascinating than a simple breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why in these teachings we play to that audience. That's conceptual. Thinking is a conceptual process, right? So in the teachings, we play to that audience, right? Because we want to get you thoroughly involved and committed before we pull the rug out from under that. Before we tell you that's not going to get you anywhere. That's all an illusion. But see, and the personality here says, oh, that's trickery. That's trickery, right? But, it's just a way of talking about the inevitable. Right, the inevitable, and I mean when I say the inevitable means that you will continue to be who you really are. That will never change, and that's inevitable. Your awakening is inevitable. It's inevitable. It's only a matter of time. It can't go any other way. This is something that's very important to understand. This is not like waking up and being who you really are, staying in the idea of yourself as a personality, or there is no other thing. It's waking up and being who you really are, or staying in the idea of yourself as a personality, and there is no other thing. And since the truth is you are the awareness, you are who you really are, right? In the end, that's got to win because it's real. It's true. The personality will run out of gas, inevitably run out of gas. So since that's the case, all you're doing here is jumping the line. All you're doing here is getting that you're already home instead of trying to get there. And if you get that you're already home, but it doesn't occur to you to be that way because of the thought process, stop believing the thought process. That's the practice. which means you don't have to do anything. If you see things for what they are, if you see the thought process for what it is, you don't have to do anything. That takes care of it. That handles it. And then see if you can allow yourself to relax and enjoy being alive. That's the bottom line. That's what we're here for. This wasn't intended to be a nightmare. But that's what it'll be unless you allow yourself to see the truth. Okay? So get that done, will you? All right, see you next time.